Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you don't know me, I'm Brian McEwen. I have been a licensed real estate broker for the last 3 years. Obviously, before that, I've worked so many jobs around the Douglas County area. But I really wanted to talk today. This is an ongoing thing that I want to start doing. It's just real talk. Different stories, things that I've seen through my time, even my own stories beforehand. And today I wanted to really talk a little bit about the first time I bought a home. I've only bought one so far, but I really wanted to dive into that because I think a lot of people like me at the time didn't know what I was doing or what you were doing or where to go today. If you've thought about it, maybe I can help you a little bit in a little bit of the process that I went through. This has been over 10 years, so it's been a while. Things have changed, but interest rates are close to where I was when I first bought my home. But I remember, you always hear that saying that if you don't know somebody, you don't know anybody that's in real estate, you don't know anybody at all. Well, I knew somebody. She's recently got her license. She's one of my best friends that I grew up with, and she's the one that helped me. But I remember I was working at RFP, which is Roseman Forest Products here in town. Working there, I was in the melamine department, and I was living with my buddy after, me and my ex split up. Luckily, he lives really close to where I was, made it nice and easy to see my daughter and all that fun stuff. So I just packed up my stuff, drove down the road, moved in with him. And while I was living there, everybody knows what it can be like to live with people. It's not always the easiest. Sometimes it's the best thing you can do in your life. Sometimes it's not as easy. It's complicated. Well, I decided, obviously, I didn't want to rent. Renting is, it wasn't where I wanted to go at the time. So I thought about it. And of course, I reached out to my friend, asked her what I should do. And she hooked me up with a mortgage broker that she knew. So I called. And I tell people all the time, it's not that hard. It's a very simple process to call somebody and talk to them and just get an understanding where you were. So I didn't know. I had no clue if I was going to be able to buy a home, if that was going to be anywhere in my realm of possibilities. But I called, gave her some information. We talked. And at that time, for her, there was no application. And remember, just so everybody knows, pre-approval is not the same thing as the full Monty. The pre-approval process is only number one step before you can buy a house. You need that to at least have a very good understanding of where you're going to sit. So when you make an offer, you have that in hand. It's after the fact that there's a whole nother ballgame. After you've made the offer and you're under contract, then that starts another part. But so I think a day or two goes by. For me, it felt like it was the next day, and it probably was. But I got the tentative pre-approval for, at that time, it's around $300,000. That was my max. That was like the top that I can go, which I didn't want to, not at all. Even though so we started looking for properties at the time with my friend, from the 300,000 to the 200,000 at the time. Or actually 100,000 at the time. So we were looking all over, and for me, I want to be able to pay this myself no matter what comes through. Because at the time, it was just me and my oldest daughter. It's just two of us. So I didn't need a huge home. 3-bedroom was fine with me. 3-1. If I got a 3-2, that's great. A 2-1, it would have been fine. But that's what I was looking for. I looked from Green. There was a really nice property, 2-story. It was around 300,000. Top max would have been a cool property to have. It just didn't make sense because that mortgage payment was significant for me. Not that I couldn't have paid for it, but I didn't want to. So I eventually settled on this property in Myrtle Creek for, at the time, $110,000. So great deal for me at the time. That's a lot at the time. But so we decided, we found that one. We decided to write the offer. We met at Starbucks, sat down, went through everything, figured out what we wanted to make offer. Obviously, she did everything she could to help me get an idea of where I wanted, what we should do. So we wrote the offer. I don't remember bickering back and forth at all. I think it was just a pretty straightforward, but she might remember more than I do on that one. I don't remember it being a bickering match or having to counter back and forth. So got under contract, did the basics, the inspection, did all the fun stuff. At the time, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just relied on her. That was what she did. She knew what she was doing. So I trusted her. She got me into the house. I moved in. And I remember in the boys' bedroom, there was 2 bedrooms. And when I was looking at it, they had it sectioned off. It was a 6 family household, 2 girls, 2 boys, and then the parents. So 3 and 2, 3, 1, that many kids. I don't blame them for wanting to get out of there. And this was also during time I think it was a pretty big struggle. I think sellers were having a hard time selling their house. So I think I was in the buying market more than I was at the time. Wasn't balanced. I think it was just a buying market. But at the time, I didn't know. I had no clue what it was. So, but I got the offer. I moved in. But in the boys' room, it was a carpenter room. They told me, I learned that they had a ferret. The boys let ferret run rampant in that room. And I don't remember anything on the inspection report about, moistures or whatnot. I don't know if I had the best inspector in the world. But as I was working in that room, because I pulled all the carpet out and the drywall was very wet, like it was not good shape. So I had to redo all that. It wasn't drywall. It was fiberboard at the time. I didn't know that. Obviously, you don't know. But as I was going through that room, I started noticing some concerns with the flooring. Turnover, I kept pulling the flooring out and it's got old termite damage. Obviously, the inspector didn't see it at the time. And I remember when I was out there with the inspector, he talked about his knee and he could barely, so I don't think he investigated very much. And so when I found all this previous damage that I was unaware of, so obviously when I made an offer, I didn't know these things were, there, and I don't know if they did. Don't really know. But what I decided to do, and I think I'm pretty sure I called her, the realtor and talked to her, my friend. She's just like, call him or whatever. I don't know. So I called him, talked to him. He gave me my money back. I think it was around $500, which is personally at the time, I think that was pretty high. Now being in the real estate market, I see kind of the different inspectors where they all sit. I mean, things haven't changed. So he was a pretty steep one for that time frame, I think. But just so everybody knows, you can get your money back. I mean, it doesn't mean you can sue him, doesn't mean you can get him for anything, but he missed something. I called him out on it at the time. I didn't know. That's just what I did. He gave me money back. And, what's great is that money that I got back paid to rebuild that whole entire room, which is insane. To be able to rebuild a whole entire 10 by 10 bedroom from subfloor to drywall for new flooring, paint, it was around $500 at that time. And I don't know what I'm doing, so I just had fun. That's the whole point of buying a house. For me, it was. I mean, when I rented, I had that attitude of like, it's not my home. Why am I painting? Why am I doing this? Why? Like, I didn't even want to mow the lawn. But, when you're renting a house, you still have to mow the lawn. And they get mad at you if you don't. So you still have to do yard work. And I always thought it's funny when I hear nowadays, like, the idea of why somebody doesn't want to buy a house. Those 3 things that come up, maintenance, yard work, commitment. Well, guess what? When you rent a house, you still got to do all those things, except for maintenance, normally. Usually you have to call, but we both all know not all landlords and management companies want to do a dang thing. But that's here and there. So I remember, after the fact, after buying the house, I didn't question. I didn't think it wasn't a big deal. Like, I'm sure there were people out there that would have freaked out finding that out. But in reality, for me, it was just a project. I screwed up. I'll tell you that. When I was cutting everything with the saw, I was using the reciprocating saw. Me stupidly cut the electrical. I cut one of the lines to the outlets. Luckily, I didn't get, hurt or anything. Stupid me. Lesson learned. But so I went through, put all the floors back on subfloor, new flooring. It's a good experience, but I'll tell you what, I don't remember doing it. Like, it's not like, where you hire a flooring guy who does it every day, just like with real estate. I do it every day. If I had the money at the time, I would have hired somebody. I would have brought somebody in that knew what they were doing. It still turned out great. I did it, and I'm sure I could do it again. But, I couldn't even tell you what I did then, how to not do what I did to fix my mistakes. So I don't remember. So, but I really just wanted to, it really wasn't that hard of for me, during that whole entire process, it didn't feel like it was extreme. At the time, I didn't know. I thought it was a smooth transaction for me. We looked at a handful of houses, brought my mom along with me, which, it's funny, is she was HD TV type person. And I'll tell you right now, being in this industry, running my own business, it is not like it is on TV. They don't show it for crap. It's great. It's great entertainment, but it's not reality. So having her around didn't really help at all, because she watches all of that, and that's not how it really is. So it was a very simple process for me, getting the loan, doing all that. I didn't have any issues, but I know, and that's what I want really people to understand. For me, it's like, when I did it, wasn't in this industry for that. So it was a simple process. But here's where it gets interesting. After the fact, obviously, I've lived in there for a year or two. I think it was around a year mark that the mortgage broker called me, because interest rates have adjusted. They lowered, and she said that it would be a good opportunity for me to get a better interest rate. And when I first got my loan, I was on a USDA loan, which was 0% down, minimal. And I think I was able to get close to cost coverage. I don't remember having to pay a lot up on, because I had zero extra money to do this. Getting the money just to do the home inspection was part of my paycheck, So I threw out with barely any money to get this home. I think in closing costs, I just can't remember on that one. I have to dig through everything that I don't have anymore and try to figure it out. But that's not the big deal. Just saying, I did it with zero. I was able to get the USDA loan working RFP at the time, which I'm surprised. So, but as the year went down, like I said, she called me, said, "Hey, interest rates dropped. You have the potential to lower your monthly payment by a good amount, significant." It helped. So I was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not lower my payment?" It made sense. But here's the thing that I didn't know, because with USDA, from what I remember at the time, most loans will have a private mortgage insurance. I didn't know what that was. I had no clue any of these things. At the time, you don't realize that insurance plays a factor. They tell you these things, but it just kind of goes right over my head. At that time, I had no clue. I didn't think about it. I was just like, this is my mortgage. Remember, that's what most people look at. What is my monthly payment? That's all I care about. Can I afford to live in the house? Does it fit my goals, my needs? Great. That's what you do. But after you kind of get in this business, you learn things. But so she calls. I was like, sure, let's go for it. That sounds great. I want that. So I did it. And of course, I had to pay money for that. Just like closing costs and everything. You have to pay your lender fees, close costs, title, all this stuff, whatever it is to change it. So that's what I did. At the time, I was like, sure, let's get it done. But I didn't realize until making my business and learning a lot more from lenders and talking to lenders, that I think I got screwed a little bit. Because obviously when I changed for my interest rate and adjusted for it, I didn't qualify anymore at the time for the same loan that I had. I couldn't do USDA again. I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't think about it. So we switched to FHA. That's what worked, because I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't 20% up in my equity or anything where I could maybe go conventional. So I got locked in with FHA, now having a permanent private mortgage insurance payment. And if people don't know what that is, you're adding this extra payment to your monthly normal bill that will be on most loans there for 20%. So once you've reached 20% of the loan, like you've paid off that much, you can reappraise, reevaluate, and get your PMI removed. FHA does not let you do that. You are stuck with it for the life of the loan that you have. So if you want to get out of it, you have to somehow switch to conventional in hopes that they will let you. Which it is worth it in the long run to get that done, because that's, a couple $100 that you may have to pay every month for the life of your loan. It is inevitably a great idea to get rid of it. I haven't researched it yet to what if I should do it or not with what I have, because I have a lot of equity in my home now. But it also costs money up front that may or may not be worth it. Plus, interest rates are higher than mine, so why would I do that? But this is a lesson I didn't know at the time. Like, I don't know if she benefited me in that way. I think they were just after getting a paycheck. So, not everybody's equal in these industries. Lender practices, broker practices, anybody that you meet, they're not all equal. They're not all with the same motives. Everybody wants to get paid. Everybody wants to make, money. So if you can get a refi, especially when interest rates change, that's their job. Their job is to call every single one of their past clients and go, hey, you have a 6 point something, or you have this interest rate. This is the new one. Let's call. Let's get you flipped over. And if you don't know what you're doing at the time, like, you're going to probably go for it. So fast forward years later, and here's one thing that I had no clue on when I got my mortgage. So my original mortgage was with a specific bank or lender or whoever loaned, the people who owned it, the bank that owned it, right? And I was like, cool, you go in, sign up, do your, get it all set up to where you can make your monthly payments. Well, a few years go by, you get a letter. Oh, we sold your loan to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. Now I have to go back in, figure out all the payment due, get it all set up, and start paying them. That's great. Years go by, the third time it happens. Now I'm with the final one, the one I met with now. And this is a story that I want everybody to hear, because this is what I didn't know. I didn't think that this was anything. I wasn't even in real estate yet. This kind of all hit right at COVID, right before COVID happened. But it switched, right? So I'm like, great. This was this didn't happen during COVID, but what happened to make me realize something is what triggered this. But I think the year before that is when it got switched over. And all of a sudden, I noticed, I think it was, I don't know how long afterwards, probably 6-7 months, I noticed that my mortgage went up by $200. I was confused. I called panic. I wasn't panicked, but I called very upset. Like, why? Why wouldn't that go up? Because, after being in this industry, you realize there's only two factors that ever adjust your mortgage, and that's insurance and the taxes. Well, taxes didn't change. My insurance, I didn't know at the time that it changed. I was like, my car payment was the same, which I bundled everything. And that's a tip for everybody that, when you have a home and you're having, you have your homeowner's insurance, your all this stuff, put your car and your homeowner's insurance in the same, you'll get a better package. Normally, I don't think anybody ever doesn't do that. But so it went up. I called them, useless. They tried to tell me that, oh, it looks like you have some sort of lien against you, and maybe that's why. So they're saying that they're paying a one part of my debt. Like, I've never heard of that before. I was like, but yeah. So that's what one person told me. So I was like, whatever. I'm like, that's bull, but okay. And nothing I can do because I couldn't figure it out. And so I just went along with it. And here's the, COVID hits. Forbearance program came out. So I was able to take advantage of it. I used it. I used that. And I know a lot of people that probably did. Don't be, if you did, you did. I did. So I was able to kind of forego my mortgage for a whole year. So I didn't really have to ever pay that extreme $200 increase at all. So I got lucky on that. But then towards the end of it, I noticed something on my my little data sheet for escrow and everything. When I went online, looking at stuff, I noticed something, and it talked about insurance, or hazard insurance is what they call it, and it wasn't the same name that I used. I was a little bit confused by that, so I called. Come to find out that they placed insurance onto me, which, if people don't know what that is let's just say you have homeowners insurance, or you decide not to have homeowners insurance, and you have a mortgage, and the mortgage company will find out because they pay it. You can opt to pay it yourself, but 90% of the time, most people probably just add it into their mortgage. So they obviously knew that my insurance, for whatever reason, lapsed, didn't go through. Well, come to find out, when the switch happened between lender to lender, it was right at the point where the payment was supposed to be paid to my insurance company. So when the transfer happened, obviously that got missed. The new lender didn't get the bill because the bill went to the other lender, and they had to have been notified. Like, I'm not, but there's no way that just somehow got misplaced, but maybe I was just the unfortunate one. But what happened, it did get missed. And it's funny is, with my insurance company at the time, they had a completely different phone number, that, completely different email. And because COVID happened, I was told that the insurance people weren't adjusting, any insurances. They weren't upping anything. They weren't changing price. So whatever you were locked in before COVID hit, for them at least, they didn't touch it. So that never went up. So, and I knew bundling, it would go up if for whatever reason. So it didn't change. So I didn't know. But all that stuff happened because he tried to reach out to me, but none of the information he had was accurate for me. So it's just funny. Like, you tell me that I have a lien put against me, which I don't know how you would even know that or think that. And then really it was insurance. Like, that should have been an easy go. Yeah, hey, you got a different complete insurance. This is your insurance company now. It looks like we forced place insurance on you, but no, they didn't want to tell me that. Or the person who I talked to had no clue what they were doing, and they could have been new, but I don't know. That's besides the point. But it's just one of those stories. I tell people this, clients, pay attention to that stuff, because you don't always realize. And if you ever have a discrepancy like that's that significant, that makes you want to call, it's very potentially your insurance changed. Because like I said, there's only two reasons. And if your taxes didn't change, now I know better, to where I'm like, okay, it's the insurance, right? The insurance is what changed. So that's just one story. I just wanted, that's one of those things I went through. And same with the mortgage broker side. Like, I should have never done it. I don't think it was worth the time, because my mortgage wasn't bad. I could have handled it, but lessons learned, you don't know. So fast forward even further, I'm in real estate. I have the lenders that I work with that I like, enjoyed. She taught me everything I know when it comes to that. And I still learn things today from new ones that I meet. But I had this opportunity. They called me and they're like, hey, you want to do this again? Mortgage rates are now, they were at that 2.5 range. And I think I'm at like a 3.2. So sure, I could have adjusted it, but that's when I called both. I called two people I know that are in the lending world. I sent them everything that I have, and both of them were like, it's not worth it. Don't do it. Cause you're paying all that money. So what I would have paid out would have been what I would have saved over those years. So it really didn't make sense, because I wasn't that far, above the newer interest rate at that time. So, but people that were at like a 5%, they would have been worth it. I would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. For 2.5% interest rate when you're at a 5, great. But so these are those lessons that I learned, and that's what they're there for. Just so you know, like, your mortgage broker, I mean, if you don't trust the person that you got a loan with, then maybe you shouldn't call them. You shouldn't use them, whatever the case is. But you can always call me. I have a lender that I trust, that if you want that information, like, that's what they're there for. And I just really wanted to let people know, like, it isn't that hard to know where you sit. Like, I got lucky that it worked for me, that I was able to qualify. I got through the process. And I bought a home well under what I qualified for because I didn't want to go crazy. I could have done it. They said I could have, but should I have? No. So I didn't. And I know people feel that it's hard now. Things are, obviously when I bought it, my mortgage is pretty cheap. You can rent that for nothing nowadays. Yet buying a home is for what you need it for. It's when you need it, why you want it. Don't worry about all of the details. Just know, buy a house that you can afford. That's the biggest thing, is don't put yourself in a situation that you're going to regret, because there's more stories that I'll be able to tell you in the future. But this is just, I just wanted to give you a little insight to me, what I went through, and I have an understanding of those little small things that I learned that I can now put into practice with other people and share that information. And that's why I made this video. I was on my way to work, coming to the office, drove. And that's what I talked. Sorry, I wasn't staring at the camera, but it's hard to do when you're driving. But it's story time in the truck. That's what I wanted. Well, hope everybody has a wonderful day. Talk to you again.